Well, better late than never is what they usually say. And 11 minutes into what was supposed to be our scheduled time of live, we are finally live. Hello, guys. Welcome to this special team review where we will be talking about teams. We are into the last week of the IPL. We've had what's probably been the most riveting season of IPL we've seen in a long time. And we are here to pick the nuts and bolts about the teams that have walked out of the playoffs, starting with, of course, Mumbai Indians, Punjab Kings, and the Gujarat Titans. Since we have Abhas already in the chat talking about Mumbai, let's start with it straight up. Again, we won't waste time. Bangalore traffic's already eaten enough of my time. Technical issues have already eaten enough of our time. Nikhil bhai, right on to you, the resident Mumbaiker, the resident MI fan, as how we cheekily put it up. Let's start with you, MI. How was it for you? Let's just start with that.
Well, one family wasn't one family. Maybe that's the best way to put it out. Lots of things that should have gone right have gone horribly wrong for them. Of course, we have graphics in terms of who was the best with the bat, with the ball. But I think this was the first season where MI did not look like MI. Lot of problems right from even before the season. There was so much talk, so much drama around who will be captain, how will be this captain, how will be the atmosphere. And right from the first game itself, the boost, the batting order, the bowling options, everything seemed out of place. So that's just an outro or an intro into how bad Mumbai were. So just to start off, four is the number of wins that they had, but four is also the number of people who scored more than 300 runs for them. Four is also the number of bowlers with more than 10 wickets for them. Four is also the number of people who hit 15 sixes at least, more than 15 sixes for them. And four is the max number of 50 plus scores that they have for any particular batter. So a lot of fours for Mumbai. Titles ज़्यादा हैं, but wins कम थे इस बार. So sorry Abbas, sorry Somesh. This was definitely a failure because they did not even make it to the playoffs.
I'll also add one more four to that. Four is the number of times they lost the toss this season. 10 बार toss जीते, 4 बार toss हारे. There you go.
And imagine, even after winning the tosses, the results have not gone their way because lots to discuss. So yeah.
Yep, 100%. I mean, speaking of the results that Nikhil Bhai spoke about, just 4 wins sporadically spread across their 14 games. They did seem to have this small streak, 3 wins in 4 games, and it did seem like, Mumbai is probably going to pick up momentum just like how we've seen them do it often previously. Wasn't to be the case this time around. After that, they went into a 4-match losing streak, and from there on, they'd already reached a place of no return in terms of at least trying to gain a playoff spot. But Nikhil Bhai, top batter for them, again, no questions asked in terms of their highest run scorer. Surprisingly, a name I don't think anyone would have picked for before the season began. But their top batter, Nikhil Bhai.
Bilkul, and top batter Rohit Sharma, and pleasantly happy with his strike rate as well. That was his best strike rate in any IPL season for him in terms of personally. The last best was around 140 odd in 2008. So he definitely started off with the bang, and everybody was very happy that finally maybe at least the captaincy baggage is off him and he's scoring a lot of runs. But he had a dip, and again I think both me and Somesh had a call about at least one century, and I'm happy that came out. But just one other 50 plus score. And that also came in the last game of the season. So a season that probably sums up in terms of Mumbai that everything that should have gone right did not click for them. And Rohit just pipped Tilak Varma in terms of in the last game. Till then, Tilak Varma was their most consistent batter. And for all practical purposes, these two may not even be part of the side next season. Again, we don't know. We are only speculating there. But in terms of adding value, so from some numbers for Mumbai in terms of with the bat, they lost the third most wickets. Only Lucknow were worse than them in terms of losing a wicket more in terms of numbers, and the run rate also wasn't that great for them because again it's understandable, right? When you keep losing wickets in the power play, it's not going to be easy, and then the batting order changes. Some days you had Namandir coming up, some days it was of course they wanted to try Deval Bruvis as well. So the one thing that you do not associate with Mumbai is chaos, but this season was everything but consistency and only chaos. So batting, that's still more positive than the bowling aspect though.
Couldn't agree with you more there. I mean, in terms of, losing wickets, they had the poorest balls per dismissal for any team this season. Just going on to show that, matlab, chale nahi koi bhi. Even Rohit Sharma, of course, was their best batter, but if you sort of compare it with other batters in general, it's not the greatest. It's if anything a reflection of how poor their batting performance was. We'll of course
Yeah.
get to Jeet Anirudh as well in due course with regards to their opinions on Mumbai Indians. I'm pretty sure both of them have some strong and harsh and importantly entertaining opinions to dish out. But Nikhil bhai, let's quickly also move on to the top bowler. No questions asked. Arguably the best bowler in the tournament so far. Jasprit Bumrah, the guy is just a proper robot. Like every time Hardik Pandya gave him the ball, the guy delivered and delivered and how, man, delivered and how.
Truly, but I think the story lies in your own words, where you said whenever Hardik Pandya giving the ball, and that I think is also a summary of where they went wrong. Because you look at that economy rate of 6.48, dude, that is not even gold dust. You need to find a new word to describe how Jasprit Bumrah was in terms of, despite horrible bowling usage, he still ended up with 20 wickets from 13 matches. And you look at that average and economy rate, that's outwardly. Matlab, and I don't think there are enough adjectives which will tell you how good and great Jasprit was. Maybe it makes the other numbers look even worse because otherwise they had the worst economy rate for any pacer in terms of this season. Everybody apart from Bumrah in the middle was also went at over 10. So it was just with Bumrah and nobody else. In terms of wickets, also we discussed, four people had more than 10 wickets for them. But Hardik Pandya also had 10 wickets, but average 40 plus. Economy rate of 10.75. I think the problem for Mumbai in terms of with the ball and the bat was lack of clarity. Because it started right from the first game where you saw Hardik taking the new ball. The next game, Bumrah is bowling only one when SRH are scoring 1,000 runs, and he's not seeing Bumrah because, okay, we've sailed Bumrah for the end, but the match's already gone by then. So I think, uh, again, everything probably boils down to one positive and a lot more negatives. In the middle overs, spinners are usually their strength. They did not go down that route. Only very few matches was when they trusted people and then they trusted Mohammad Nabi. I mean, you are playing someone who's going to bowl only a couple of overs for matchups. So probably a season where you saw the lack of clarity coming through in terms of you did not know who to trust in terms of Hardik. They started with Bumrah, Kodze, Luke Wood, then they threw in Quena Mefaka just for fun. Then you had another Tushara who's coming in very late in the season. You were wondering, oh, what is happening? Romario Shepherd had a great couple of games. Even with the ball, he had a decent outing, but they never played. So it was a season where you did not understand what was MI trying to gain. But it is sad, but at times even good that sometimes just having big names doesn't work. Because if you see in this entire auction cycle, all of their big purchases they have not worked. Whether it is Kishan at 15.25 CR, Archer at 8 CR, Green and Hardik at 17 plus, and even Tim David. Tim David Gill, I'm sure Jeet has special words, so I'll reserve that for him. But it's all the key roles. Now, whenever you think of Mumbai, you think of role clarity, two pacers, two overseas batters, consistency. Surya having three ducks at home. I mean, that is, it probably just sums up a very, very poor season for them in terms of both execution and also planning.
100% couldn't agree with you more there in terms of how Mumbai season panned out. Now, talking about what went right for them, of course, Rohit Sharma and Jasprit Bumrah were that sort of silver lining that you can talk about. And like a couple of you mentioned, and Nikhil Bhai himself mentioned, Naman, he was definitely a player that sort of came up and stepped up in this at the biggest stage. Another name that I'll throw in, Anshul Kamboj, once again, which shows that irrespective of what's happened on the field, unka jo scouting team hai, they've been top notch. Anshul Kamboj was definitely good in the limited chances that he got, and that just proves or goes on to show कि बस talent pool तो है, scouting team भी है एमआई के पास, फिर भी कैसे? But ठीक है, anyways, वो question तो हम थोड़े बाद के लिए रखेंगे. Let's start with Jeet. In terms of what according to him went right for them. I mean, बहुत criticize करना ही है, तो एक 5 मिनट लग गया, थोड़ा हमको praise कर ही लेते हैं क्या? ये ठीक है, वो ठीक है, बता दीजिए.
But yeah, see, there were more negatives than positives, so it's quite hard to actually pinpoint the limited positives they have. So, of course, Jasprit Bumrah is a no-brainer. भाई वो कुछ भी करे कैसा भी सीजन खेले, no matter how the other bowlers perform, this guy is always going to be the standout. So that was not a surprise at all. But one of the things I liked, I know it didn't really translate later on, but Rohit Sharma played with freedom. The captaincy was gone. It was quite unfair the way it was gone, but that's a different topic altogether. But the way he played in the power play was really impressive. So progressively across seasons, we have seen how his strike rate and intent has improved in the power play. And this year, it was perhaps the best. Again, later on, it fizzled out, but that's a different story altogether. At least this guy was showing some intent that was lacking previously. So that was one of the things that stood out, that Rohit Sharma batted with freedom with no burden of captaincy. Number two for me that stood out was the youngsters, someone like Namandir. Very few know of him. If you just check out his T20 stats before the tournament started, he had barely played like 7 or 8 T20s. That is what was his experience of playing professional T20s coming into the tournament. But that guy had an outstanding Sher-e-Punjab tournament. So I believe he was scouted from that particular tournament where he was outstanding, and we saw the class that he had. He was tried on at number 3, and that is where he has batted for Punjab as well in the limited number of games that he has got. He's batted in the top order or the top 4. He showed the potential. He had some outstanding shots. He was a very good fielder in the outfield, and you could see that this guy can contribute decently with the ball as well. I mean, of course, they had very limited spin options as well. If they had to leave out Mohammad Nabi, there was only Tilak Verma and Namandir as the off-spin options. So they had to bank upon one of the two, and Namandir got the job done decently. So there was a lot of promise with him. Second one was, of course, like you mentioned, Anshul Kamboj. Again, the scouting has been sensational over the years for MI. Now, whether that is, say, the domestic players, the uncapped players specifically, or the overseas players, MI has been outstanding when it comes to scouting. Anshul Kamboj was another one of those bowlers. So again, the stats may not do justice to what or how well he performed in the tournament, but this guy again showed promise. Somebody who I would say was quite a lot like Josh Hazelwood in terms of hitting those specific hard lengths consistently and clocking 140 odd. So this guy again was another very, very promising bowler who came into the picture since Akash Madhwal was not having a good run. So he did a really good job, and he came in at the right time because he had those tracks that were tailor-made for him. So yeah, again, limited positives, but these were some of the positives that stood out for me.
Fair enough. And just one more thing to throw in there about Namanthir is the fact, of course, he'd only played 7 or 8 T20s, at SMAT, but he was very, very poor. Matlab, agar aap sirf numbers ke basis pe jaoge, from what I remember, this is off the top of my head, sub 10 average, strike rate bhi kuch khas nahi. Matlab, number dekhoge to lagega, arey, kaun tailender ko utha laye. So, which is sort of, once again, goes on to show that they have a phenomenal scouting team there. And kudos to them, man, for being able to unearth these diamonds with such alarming consistency. I mean, it almost makes you wonder कि बाकी teams कर क्या रही हैं यार? घोड़े बेच के सो रही है वहाँ पे. I mean, the joke is the extent to which they've been unearthing such talents is कि छोड़ भी रहे उसी pace के साथ. रमनदीप को छोड़ दिया, Tristan Stubbs को छोड़ दिया. Like I mean, what on earth is this? Excessive money problem, excessive luxuries problem they're suffering from.
So one of the things, so during the SMAT, I was observing one thing. So of course, SMAT is a primary tournament to scout out these uncapped players. So I was there at most of the games. So I was seeing the scouts from so many teams who were there. There were GT scouts. There were scouts from, say, PBKS, SRH. All the scouts had, kind of made it to see the kind of new talent that was on offer of SMAT games at most of the venues. The two teams that I didn't see at most of the venues was one, MI. Second was CSK. Yet we are seeing the kind of players that they are. I just don't get it. Like, how do they do it? They have a system and it works really well. Even despite the scouts not showing up at most of the venues, they do at some venues, of course, but despite not showing up at most of the venues, they are still able to unearth these gems, man. That is what is outstanding. So, kudos to them.
Fair enough. Anirudh, anything to add in terms of positives, or are you keen on this?
Sorry, this is the only time Anirudh has not spoken anything in 14 minutes into something.
Khatam karo jaldi. Wait, you're on mute. Successfully, Anirudh bhai, once again. Nope, we cannot. आप थोड़ा ऑडियो का फिर से पता नहीं technical issues once again creeping into Anirudh's system. Nikhil bhai, let's move to you. In terms of positives, anything more to add? I'm guessing we've covered it pretty much. I mean, bhai, 10 minute positives pe baat kiya. This is more than what Mumbai Indians themselves would have spoken about in hindsight. So let's, of course, move on to the negatives. The points, I mean, when I say negatives, what didn't work for them? Let's put it that way, because, again, they were the team to beat, man. They were supposed to be the team to beat. Bhai, matlab, 5 players who've played for India. और क्या चाहिए यार निखिल भाई, like How did they not perform to their potential?
Yeah, I think as I said, something just a while back that this was the one season where you saw both MI and CSK, to be very, very honest, that they did not have role clarity. Of course, both of them have had captaincy changes, and while it was controlled for one and not for the other, but you still don't expect the management to not have role clarity. Now, that is something that you can check out even from the first few games that they played. That in-game management and role clarity is very, very crucial for a size like MI who have so many options. Now, you take on the first game itself, or the second game, or the third game. Tilak Verma at times was batting too low. Team David was held back against Chennai. Hardik Pandya came in. But against RR, where Hardik should have come in, they did not send Hardik. They sent Mohammad Nabi there. Now, those are some of the calls that you can't get your head around. Kyunki, how are you doing these calls? Now, this is not the Mumbai of the old. Because even for Gujarat, there were times when you would see early wicket falling. If they don't have the number three, it is Hardik who's taking up that role. So I think this season, they probably were too, I wouldn't say over ambitious, but as you said, lot of talent. Six, we discussed in the preview that they probably have the cream of Indian batting. Kishan, Sky, Tilak, Nihal, भाई ये बहुत बढ़िया numbers है. I think the Sky injury probably put them off a lot, and I can give them the benefit of doubt that okay, even with the ball, Behrendorff going out, Madhushanka going out, probably meant that they had to back untested people, but still I don't think they used them in the right spots. And to me, everything comes later because it's at the visualization level only where you found that issue that no fixed batting order, not in terms of we're not fixated with numbers in terms of spot, but entry points. Now, when Sky was not there, they wanted to use Brevis, but Brevis did not close out the game against Gujarat. The people who came in could not hit out. Tim David, even in 2022, they played Tim David, dropped him, and then he came back again and came good. You saw that with Romero Shepherd as well. That you start with someone, you go to somebody else, and then you go back to people. So it was only Jasprit Bumrah who was the constant there, and Sky then who came in very, very late meant that they were always struggling. And the last game is probably the perfect encapsulation that Deval Brew is open. What's the purpose there? Why are you shifting Kishan down the order? So for me, everything else was later in terms of execution, but in terms of planning only, I felt Mumbai were very far from what they were. And something that, if you haven't read Somesh's piece, again, it is more heartfelt for him being a MI fan. I think we can give him that certificate already, that all of their big purchases.
MI fan ऐसे अभी सोमेश is an MI fan ऐसे बोलना पड़ेगा बस.
Supposedly MI fan, so all their big purchase, we've discussed about how they spent so much on Archer, but he never played. When he played, he did not quite work out. Bumrah was injured, you can't put it to Bumrah. But Green, the one positive that they had last year in terms of big purchase, उसको दे दिया RCB को, और RCB देखो अभी किधर बैठी है शांति से. And the guy they got in, they could not even use him well, which is surprising because Hardik bowled in the power play and he went at over 10s. Now, it just tells you it probably was very muddled in terms of whatever they were trying to do. They didn't have their own conviction. Now, that is something that we don't associate with Mumbai. So, for me, that was the biggest problem because everything else was the result of this lack of conviction and lack of clarity.
Completely agree with you. And Archer की जब भी बात होती है ना, my mind goes back to this legendary tweet by a senior colleague of mine, Nikhil Bhai would know, right after the auction. The said person had tweeted, people are just going gung-ho about Archer and Bumrah being together in the same bowling attack. Let them field the two of them together. फिर बात करेंगे. The ending it deserves is Archer एक season injured होगा, Bumrah एक season injured होगा, फिर तीसरे में दोनों नहीं रहेंगे. Unfortunately तीसरा नहीं हुआ, but पहले तो he got it bang on. And just makes you wonder again. Jeet, it was wishful thinking on Mumbai's part, right? Again, you can give them that benefit of doubt also because they can afford to do something like that. 5 trophies हैं उनके cabinet में, so they can try and experiment and take those risks. Because make no mistake, had they been able to pull it off, Archer and Bumrah bowling together would have been a sight to behold. Agreed. But again, we knew how slim the odds of that were. But Mumbai could. Had an RCB done this, you could probably rightfully berate them कि भाई कर क्या रहे हो तुम लोग, एक तो trophy जीत लो पहले, फिर ये सब करना. So, do you think you can give them the benefit of doubt there, or do you think you should just be objective and say कि boss पागल हो गया?
They have enough credit in the bank for whatever they have done in the past, so I wouldn't really hold them at gunpoint for whatever calls they've taken in the past. But specifically about this year, if you remember, it was day one when I arrived at the CDC office. The first thing after being asked about MI was, how does MI stack up? And I was like, they have the worst bowling unit and potentially a bottom three place looms for them. So again, it sounded funny, but when I looked at the list of bowlers, it just didn't convince me. And I've watched them all. So whether it be Gerald Kurtzia in the South African conditions or Quena Mafaka in the Under-19 World Cup, Nuwan Tushara, Dilshan Madhushanka, later on Luke Wood, or even Shams Mulani for that fact, it just didn't convince me. It just didn't. Like, how can you end up constructing a squad like that? So on paper, you would look at these names and you would look at the numbers and you'd feel that, okay, it's a good squad. But I didn't see it that way because I've watched these guys and I know how the conditions at the Wankhede Stadium will be for the 7 home games that they would have. So I just didn't see how it's going to work out, and that's exactly how it panned out. Jasprit Bumrah was, of course, a saving grace. Piyush Chawla did well. Mohammad Nabi did his usual job of constructing the run flow. So, barring these three bowlers, every other bowler with a decent sample size of overs bowled conceded over 9 per over. So, that tells you a massive, massive story of how horribly their bowling attack looked. Another issue that they've got, something that's been common over the last 2-3 years, is they have a tendency of throwing in youngsters too early. They are throwing them in the pit way too early when they are completely uncooked. भाई pit में डालोगे तो cook नहीं हो जाने वाले वो लोग. It started with Deval Brevis. Under 19, he had a great run in that Under 19 World Cup. And of course, this guy is an outstanding talent and he'll be a star in the future. But he was thrown in too early and it didn't work out, obviously. This year, sadly, they did the same thing with Quena Mafaka. And of course, that didn't pan out well either. So just hold on. I mean, there are domestic players that teams are having and having them as the future projects and all that stuff. Right? Use them as a future project. That is what Deval Brevis was supposed to be. उसमें अब क्वेना मफा का भी उसको भी लेके आए अभी और straight away game भी दे दिया and he got hammered. So that is something they need to be a little bit careful about. Now, sadly, what's happening here is that the coaching staff always has an influence when it comes to the overseas signings. There is Mark Boucher, so Devon Brevis came in, Quena Mafaka. When there was Shane Bond involved in the coaching staff, there was a New Zealand contingent coming in. So that also plays a bit of a part. But it's something they need to really plan well. If you are investing in somebody, then just hold on to your horses here. There is a long way to go for them. Don't throw them in when they are 18 or 19-year-old. They are overseas players. They are talented, but just give them some time to adjust to those environment, adjust to the conditions, and then give them a go maybe 2 or 3 years later. But it's been too early for both these players and it hasn't panned out well.
I mean, I'm happy to have the sweet fruits of vindication of I told you so, because मेरे को याद है preview के time पे जब मैंने कहा था कि यार it's a very raw pace attack. Sure, I mean, the names are very exciting. Make no mistake. I was very excited to see the likes of Luke Wood, Gerald Kurtzia, Tushara. Back then, I don't think they signed Quena Mafaka yet. In fact, they signed him during the preview. Like preview के time के preview के बीच में live chat में message आया कि भाई Mafaka has been signed. Sure, the names were exciting, but again, like Jeet mentioned, very untested. IPL is not arguably is the best T20 league in the world. Period. And I wouldn't mind going as far as to say it's tougher than international cricket. Because international cricket mein sab so rahe hai, no one cares at the end of the day. I mean, I'm just being bluntly honest here. But Anirudh, let's hope, again, technical issues aside, you would be wanting to chip in eagerly right now. And no, it's like technical issues have decided, Anirudh, nahi. Itna Mumbai ka mazak udaya na tune, nahi chhodenge tumhe. Let's see if something can be figured out. Let's just take someone's help there. But again, coming back to those issues bit, Nikhil bhai, just to close that out, Mumbai's pace attack, second was balls per dismissal, second was run rate, and this with Bumrah. Bumrah ko hata de to bhai stratospheric levels. Matlab पूछो ही मत. 12 पे जा रहे, 11.5 पे जा रहे. Okay, not even 12. Okay, let me sort of be on, like give them some thoda slack cut करते. Anirudh nahi, let me use his phrase. But how do they sort of go on from here? Yeah, like let's talk about retentions. I mean, what are the players who do, like, what sort of core do they build from here entering the mega auction?
Well, the first and foremost is the retentions will have to be star marked, not the star that Rohit mentioned, but the star that you don't know how situation is at the camp. Because again, I wouldn't want to talk about something that Rohit did not want to talk about in terms of the conversation that we've all now heard of him, and we don't want to make too much out of it. But from what is worth, it doesn't look like he may continue there. So that is my first number of assumption that Rohit may not be part of this anymore, and he may be going out to some other franchise because I think probably a year or two left for sure in terms of how much he can add value because there are a couple of teams where he could be a part of their setup as well. So that is my first assumption. There is a core that they can bank on, but I'm very interested to see if they have the conviction that okay, these are my options. So if you look at the retention list that I have suggested for them, again, this is not my suggestion. This is what I expect them to do in terms of Hardik being the uh, guy who leads, and then him along with the new coach because I don't honestly see Mark Boucher surviving this because if anybody has to go, I think Mark is the fun. मतलब Mark इधर है मैं हूँ. He needs to do that कि भाई चलो thank you so much for your services, but you'll have to build that core and reset properly because again we know this and it is not quantifiable, but you need a happy dressing room as much as you want to speak about winning and all of this and maintaining that standard. It comes when people are playing for each other and they are playing towards one target. So that did not look, again, we are no experts in there and we don't have anything conclusive, but if they can manage to hold on to Surya and Bumrah both, then along with Hardik, I think they still form a decent core as somebody to try for. So those are my retention. Now again, they are debatable. Kishan may not be there, and Tilak Verma will be there. Again, the assumption here is 4 Indians and 2 overseas. And because they've spent so much on Tim David and Deval Brovis in terms of time and investment, I think they both might be potentially retained, along with, as I said, Hardik, Surya, and Bumrah. Now Kishan, because he's a keeper batter. So that is where, if you want to leave him out in the auction, it may not be easy to buy him back. It may be slightly easier. And again, these are clutching to straws here that a Tilak Verma may not have. People might break their bank a bit more on a keeper batter as such for a guy who's only batting. Now, again, some other side may use Tilak's bowling, but potentially because a lot of teams need keepers in terms of GT needing one, KKR may need one in terms of Indian options. So RCB will potentially need one next year. So in terms of that, I wouldn't want Kishan to be out if he's there in their plans. So buying back Kishan might be difficult, which is why I feel those four can be retained and they are still good options because you're potentially retaining two openers, two finishers, one gun middle order, a batter who can bat at 3 or 4 for you, and one Bumrah. I mean, there's nobody else who you can retain. And apart from the other options that they have in terms of overseas bowlers, I think they're all too early. Quena, Luke Wood, I don't think they'll trust them enough because they did not trust them enough in the season. And Nuwan Tushara is the one guy who I feel they can retain, but whether they'll do it at the expense of Team David, not sure because then you need that one overseas guy who you want to hit pace. So those are my potential suggestions for retentions for MI.
Interesting. Jeet bhai, do you agree with that? Because Brevis is a very sort of left field choice, and also in terms of how Brevis hasn't necessarily worked for them. I mean, because I personally think he's been exposed to IPL way too early, and he probably should have been given, like, just like what they did with Stubbs is what they should have ideally done with Brevis, and what they did with Brevis is probably what they should have done with Stubbs. They got that wrong. But where do you stand when it comes to that?
I agree with all the names that Nix took, even Devold Brevis for that fact. Keep him, dude. That's all I'm going to say because this guy will be a star in the next few years to come. Do not let him go to some other franchise. Don't let other franchise steal that guy. Potential hai. He needs more experience, more time playing back home, playing different levels of cricket and spending more time with the Mumbai Indians. But maybe 2 years down the line, this guy will show why he has been rated very highly by Mumbai Indians. And even I rate him quite highly because I've watched him. I can see why this guy can have an outstanding career in the T20 format. But again, I'll stick to him. And then even if you compare the other options, other overseas options they've got, I don't see why, other players, other such overseas players should be retained over Brevis. They've invested in Brevis. Now is not the time to let go of him. Ab tak jo bhi work that you have put behind him will all be gone. It will all be in vain. So there is no point. Have him, keep him. He's going to be a very handy option in the future. Not to forget, this guy can bowl as well. So if required, there will be that option too. Exactly. So I agree with the names that he has picked. Yeah.
Interesting. Let's hope for Anirudh's sake he can talk. And Anirudh,
Can you hear me?
Right, there we go. And we
Finally.
have lift off Mr. Anirudh
Okay.
Srinivas. But just let's first close the argument and then, of course, we'll get to Anirudh's thoughts as well. So, Jeet and Nikhil Bhai both spoke about how they've invested already on Devolve Brevis, so they probably should stick to him. Again, I once again think that's probably sunk cost fallacy doing its trick. Ki bhai, matlab, I don't think he's still too early is where I stand at. But this is just me sort of looking at it. What about you, Anirudh? Where do you stand when it comes to the retentions? You
See,
saw that.
I have obviously a very different opinion because I don't believe one of the players which Nikhil mentioned is going to get retained. So I've told this many times in our live streams as well that I don't think Jasprit Bumrah will stay along with Mumbai Indians. Couple of reasons for that. One, I mean, I understand that there's the inevitable power above all of us who is, I don't want to say his name, but we all know who the Mumbai Indians owner is, right? So that is the
We call him
factor here.
who shall remain unnamed.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my point here. So I think that's a big factor. Even though that's a big factor, I still believe Jasprit Bumrah, there's a high chance that he could leave. And if he does leave, that allows you to retain someone like Tilak Verma in that case, because then we're obviously assuming that 4 Indians are allowed to be retained. So that will allow another Indian, which possibly could be Tilak Verma as another option. In terms of Devol Braves, I'm just not convinced as a retention option because you can buy him back for really cheap if you want, because I don't expect his stocks to go really high. Even if he has a great SA20, for example, even then a top order overseas batter who's young, who's not a starter, I don't expect him to be a starter material in 12 months either. So why would you want to invest on him when you can buy him back? Of course, I understand Jeet's argument saying that you've invested 3 years on him, and it could be in some ways sunk cost fallacy in the sense you've invested three, why not another three? But the point is, even if you choose to invest another three, why don't you do it through the auction? Gives you another option. I'd say Gerald Coates here. I know he's not had the greatest of seasons, but I still think he's got a lot more potential in terms of being a starter for Mumbai Indians next year. Because even if he does go back into the auction next year, there's a great chance that Coates has a great 12 months in international cricket. And end of the day, auction prices inevitably the market is determined by that, right? So I expect Coates across formats. I know you don't technically look at what happens in tests and ODIs, but the reason he got the buy he got was because of the performance in the 23 World Cup, right, for Coetzee. So I think Coetzee would be a more prudent selection, quite simply because of the prizes which Coetzee and Brevis himself are likely to go for. But again, it all depends on the setup. Isn't one thing I want to talk about is Mumbai Indians is the team. They call themselves the one family, right? I think that's the biggest problem here. They are not a family. And in team sport, you cannot exist like that. So whoever they do end up retaining, whether it's Hardik, Rohit himself, or whoever they do end up retaining, the 4 Indians, there needs to be clear communication amongst themselves, which is clearly been messed up in the last 6 months. That, boss, this is the future. This is how we're going to go. Are you on board or not? Because there's no point in, say, retaining a Surya Kumar Yadav if he's not on board, if he's not happy. Just because you give him money, I don't think anyone's going to be happy, especially for top level international cricketer, right? So I think that's the key thing for Mumbai to sort out heading into next season. I mean, Ambanis generally do not admit their mistake, and I don't think bringing Hardik back was a mistake. The way they did it was the mistake, because you've got 3 or 4 other names who've got leadership aspirations apart from Rohit himself. You've got Surya Kumar Yadav, you've got Jasprit Bumrah, who are no mugs when it comes to international and being big stars, right? So, I mean, it's going to be, I think the one retention, I mean, obviously we'll be looking forward to all retentions, but one team's retentions I'd be cleanly looking forward to is Mumbai Indians, because that would actually determine a lot of other teams kind of having their moves as well. Like someone like Surya and Bumrah being available would affect other teams and their moves as well, right? So, should be an interesting next 6 to 8 months, I believe.
Bumrah in the auction, bhai, shut up and take my money. Just call me, bro. And I'm not even talking about shut up and take my money from say RCB POV ki bhai le lo. Just the entertainment, the drama that's going to unfold at the 2025 mega auction. Oh man, like I already can't wait for it, and we're not even at the end of the preceding season. But Nikhil bhai, closing thoughts. Let's just take a few questions. Of course, we've spoken enough about what didn't work for them. Clearly, there's a lot. We've tried our best to sort of unpeel the onion, unpeel the layers, and understand ki boss, okay, you know what? This is probably what they can look at. This is the core they can hold on to, like you mentioned. I don't understand why Ishan Kishan could probably get the nod ahead of Tilak Verma, more to do with his supposed closeness with Hardik Pandya and also Ambani's own fondness, because I remember Akash Ambani being very vocal even after that 15.25 crore bid at the 2022 auction. He was very clear, ki boss, ये अपना बंदा है, इसको तो हम ही रखेंगे. So given that, I'd be very surprised if they let go of him. And also given, again, all of these are speculations, all of these, like, we have no way of proving this, but given this supposed beef between Pandya and Tilak Verma, where things not entirely being well between the two, you could see why Tilak Verma could probably be shown the door. Might not be right, might not be meritocratic, but at the end of the day, that's what we talk about when we say there's drama and then there is IPL. But anyways, coming to this, sports fan had this question: why on earth did I not use Kumar Kartikeya the entire season?
So again, this is the Nana Patekar meme. ये राज भी उनके साथ ही चला गया out of the season, because I think it was a very novel idea to try out Shams Mulani. But now you're, again, as Jeet said, you're trying to throw in a new name who's done well domestically. Make no mistake, I think he's one of India's future prospects as well in terms of maybe other formats. But again, it's probably a season where everything that they wanted to try has not quite worked out. Whether it is Quena, whether it is Brevis, whether it is Shams Mulani, because now Shams Mulani is a regular performer. Now he does well with the both bat and ball. Now he did not click. It makes you question, oh, Kumar Kartikeya. But last year also Kumar Kartikeya was decent in terms of defensive option. But this year they just did not trust their entire setup enough. Again, sorry to digress, but it's similar to how Chennai have operated with spin. With MS, you knew spin will be the one that is banged on, but not the case this year. So with MI also, you have to understand, when captains change, they will all have their own biases and outlook that, okay, this is the guy that I want to try on to. So maybe again, it's how we discuss with Lucknow as well. Not a single game to calm eyes. It doesn't make sense. But it is what it is, unfortunate. But hopefully, because they haven't, again, it's like, हमारे पास इतने सारे scouting के talents है, it's difficult now to retain all of them. Now, somebody else will benefit out of them, but there is nothing that you can do about it. So hopefully, if they still trust him enough, they'll keep Kumar Kartikeya or buy him back. If not, some other team can definitely use him out.
And just one more thing I want to add. I think Akshay did point out the fact that as much as they've bought in talent, there have been a lot of talents they've been let go of as well. I think, and that's kind of inevitable, right? I've started to think in an IPL where you've got mega auctions every 3 years, how much of a boon is it to actually kind of have these young talents who you try to develop, who you'll have to let go in 3 years, because it's kind of rare. Say someone like Rinku Singh becomes one of your first 4 retentions, right? So for KKR example, they've spent a lot of time. So it's taking a long time for him to become one of the first 4 retentions. So how long will it take for any of these young players? We mentioned, Jeet, Nikhil, all of them spoke about the likes of Anshul Kamboj or even Namanti. I'm pretty sure there'll be 9 other teams vying for both of those players come next auction, right? So because they've seen what these guys can offer. Of course, come the mega auction, you've got the 3-year cycle where you say, at least for these 3 years, I can keep him. But then second and third year of an auction, especially in these 2 mini auctions, how much of value does it really make to invest in a really young player? Again, Mumbai do not. But one thing I do not believe is Mumbai are not trying to just win for the next 3 years. They're trying to win now, because the Hardik Pandya move was made to win this season. Because they've seen CSK, for example, win a couple of titles in the last 2 years, and I'm sure they haven't won. They haven't won a title since 2020, right? So they would have wanted to win right now, and they haven't won. They haven't made the playoffs. They finished 10th, in fact. So I think I'm not quite sure what Mumbai Indians could possibly do. It's just that, again, all of these chat about talents and the potential these guys have. The crux of the matter is, till the big dogs in the team do not actually play together, none of these things actually work. Because clearly, we'll see what happens in, say, 20 days' time for India. I'm not too hopeful either way, but this could potentially have a ripple effect, quite simply because 4 or 5 of these main characters are again involved in 20 days' time. And I'm not having too much of hope. I'm just saying that it's inevitable that there will be a clash there. Because, see, it's egos, man. These guys are all very, very successful cricketers. What are they? 0.0001% of top level Indian cricketers, right? So it's inevitable that they'll have their own personal ambitions, and they should, right? Why shouldn't they have their personal ambitions? You can't say, okay, I'll get Hardik Pandya, so Jasprit Bumrah, Surya Kumar Yadav, Rohit Sharma. You may have achieved all you've achieved with Mumbai, but sorry, we're getting this guy who is supposedly our own guy. But okay, cool, he can be our own guy, but it doesn't mean that those guys should not have ambitions, right? So this is where Mumbai got it wrong. But again, it should be the most interesting story in the next 8 to 12 months.
100%. And given, like Anirudh mentioned, given their affinity and their passion and obsession with winning the title, something we've heard from ex-players, something we've heard from experts, it's going to be very interesting, because this auction cycle They had the lowest win percentage. In fact, they were the only team with the sub 40 win percentage. They won only 38.6% of their games. I mean, that's as bad as it can get. And this including the 2023 season where they ended up winning 9 out of the 16. So this goes on to show two horrible, horrible seasons. And we can definitely see a lot of changes coming up. So it's going to be interesting from a Mumbai perspective, both as a neutral and as a fan. A lot of changes coming up. So yeah, buckle up, fasten your seat belts. Like Pathan said, bhai, mausam bigadne wala hai wahan pe. But quickly, let's now move on to the second team that we wanted to discuss. From the extremely popular and extremely charismatic Mumbai Indians to the very low-key, hardly discussed, always under the radar Punjab Kings. I almost forgot kiska team hai, but yeah, thankfully I know it is, of course, Jeet. Jeet is holding on to Punjab. Jeet, let's start with you in terms of Punjab Kings. Kya laga overall, just in a nutshell, if you had to summarize the season, how was it?
Again, a tournament that I will term as a mixed bag because we saw how many close games they had. So in the first 8 games, I believe they had 6 losses. 6 losses, and how close were they? They lost against RCB in the last over. They lost a game against LSG that they should have won. Then they lost against SRH by 2 runs. Then against RR, MI, GT, again, all of them in the last over. So that's 6 losses, 6 games. Even if they would have converted those 6 losses into maybe 2 or 3 wins, 3 wins would have guaranteed them a top 4 spot, by the way. It would have given them 16 points. They would have been through.
Potential
But
top
even
two.
Potential top 2 as well. But even if they would have got 2 wins, those 6 losses had been converted into 2 wins somehow. Then also they would have been in contention of making it through to the top 4. So sadly, they lost out on those crucial moments that they just couldn't capitalize on. So it's a team that could have finished and that could have done so well in this tournament, but ended up finishing at number 9th. So what was interesting here is that when the last mega auction happened in 2022, when Anil Kumble and they had their own team, right? They had a mindset. They had a mindset. They had a plan to play the aggressive brand of cricket, right? Go big or go bust. It was a simple strategy. And they had recruited players who suited that style of play. That was 2 years ago when the mega auction happened. Come 2024, we are seeing that exact brand of cricket being played, but that coaching staff doesn't remain anymore, sadly. So, had they been given a longer rope, maybe 1 or 2 seasons more, that strategy that was there 2 years ago could have really paid off well this time around for them because they had started this 2 years ago. Sadly, none of those coaching staff were involved anymore. So that kind of paid off really badly for them because it was an entirely new coaching staff. They brought in a few of their own new players. It just didn't gel well. So a season of what ifs is how I would sum it up.
Completely agree with you there. In fact, that was the statement I had in mind, a proper season of what ifs for Punjab Kings. Unfortunately for them, of course, injuries, availability concerns, all of that, just sort of whipped up the perfect storm for them. And yeah, they just could not come out of it. But speaking of their results, again, like Jeet mentioned, a lot of close results. Unfortunately, they weren't able to come out on top at the right side of the results often enough. Only 5 wins for them, one more than the wooden spoon holders, Mumbai Indians. But that wasn't good enough for them, to sort of hold on to a playoff spot. 3 wickets, 2 runs. Just see those margins, 9 runs. Like, makes you wonder, yeah. It just makes you wonder. But again, in terms of what went right, what went wrong, we will get to that. But a couple of individual performers for them. Top batter, of course, Jeet, a name that, again, once again, just like I don't think a lot of people would have put their money on Shashank Singh when they sort of, thought of Punjab's top performer before the season began.
Well, even PBKS and Preeti Zinta wouldn't have because Shashank Singh apparently was a mistake, which is later clarified. But who on earth would have thought that the very player because of whom PBKs were being made fun of during the auction would end up being the highest run getter for PBKs? So that was absolutely crazy. 32-year-old Shashank Singh just came into the picture and played such crucial knocks for them down the order, almost taking them home when their top order, the top 4 were failing consistently. So it was a huge, huge positive. And had you asked me who would end up, or whether Shashank Singh would end up as PBK's highest run getter this season, looking at the kind of names they had, no way, dude. I don't think so. I would have taken his name, that's for sure. Again, no disrespect to the talent he has. Of course, he's proven it. So that's absolutely outstanding. So quite glad, man. Quite glad. But let's see how it goes.
Completely agree. I mean, in fact, when we talk of scouting, it's usually Mumbai Indians and their scouting teams that we talk about. But make no mistake, Punjab Kings and the team should be sort of taken in the same breath. They have been on par, if not better, when it comes to scouting talents. And we're not just talking about Shashank and Ashutosh, who've, come out this time. There's so many names. In fact, I remember the game against Gujarat that they ended up winning. Each and every player a part of that 11 was scouted by them. I'm talking about domestic talents, of course. There was Prab Simran, Shashank, Ashutosh, Harpreet, Arshdeep, Jitesh, 6, and there was Harshal. Okay, there was 6 plus 1. 6 scouting talents in the same 11. That just goes on to show, boss, you're doing something right. Sure, it's not translated into something tangible. They've still not been able to convert it to performances, but you want to believe over time, with experience, all these sort of raw, uncut diamonds will be polished. They will be able to sort of, do something for them. But again, in terms of their bowling as well, I genuinely thought they had a very, very, very good bowling lineup, a very well-rounded bowling lineup, something a lot of people did not give them enough credit for before the season began. But top bowler, once again, a name that not a lot of people would have thought of. In fact, everyone were loathing Punjab Kings. See, boss, kar kya rahe ho? Why on earth are you going for Harshal Patel of all players? But Jeet, once again, he's just proven us all wrong. And yeah.
Well, not only the top bowler for PBKS, he currently has a purple cap as well. So that purple Patel is back with 24 wickets. So that was again outstanding. So if you recollect, then in the first 3 or 4 games this season, he started off quite badly. He was getting hit for runs. Of course, bowling at the death is not easy, but conceding over 45 in every of the first 3 or 4 games, you kind of started looking at this and you started questioning, bhai, is it a good trade? Is it a good signing by PBKS? But then, as the tournament progressed, we started seeing one crucial thing. The dipping off cutter came back. The dipping off cutter came back and started making an immediate impact. And then if you look at the run that he had consistently, he was amongst the wickets. He was outfoxing the batters with his variations and he was keeping it fairly tight as well. So it's something that we have discussed previously as well, that the utilization of Harshal Patel matters a lot. In those 20 overs, how you manage his quota of 4 overs is really, really vital. It's best to, of course, start introducing him after the power play or immediately after the power play, but also ensure that he doesn't have more than probably 1 over at the death. Try to utilize him in the middle overs. Just get 3 overs done and dusted right then and there, which is something that was implemented to an extent and it worked really well as well. So this guy had an outstanding season out of nowhere because initially the start was not so promising, but later on, in the latter half, this guy absolutely turned it around, and I'm quite happy to see that. Because again, even the pitches, if you look at Mullapur and all, Mullapur is considered to be one of the flattest decks. I know it's a new venue for many of them, but I've seen how the pitch generally behaves over there. It's not easy bowling over there, and how this guy actually performed was really outstanding.
Completely agree with you there. Just to add more names, Arshdeep himself, despite having had a seemingly ordinary season, was amongst the wickets regularly. Rabada was actually probably, one of sort of the better performing players for them this season, something that none of us really expected because his last 2 seasons had been ordinary at best, average. But this time around, he actually looked good. They also used them well. Kudos to Shamkaran, who primarily captained the side, which is also the reason why they were the best pace attack this season. Even numbers back that up. Best balls per dismissal, 14.4 balls per wicket. That just goes on to show how good they were with the ball while taking wickets. The best pace unit at the death and the best pace unit in the middle overs. Just going on to show that bowling kafi acha kiya. But funnily enough, it was the batting that let them down. Unlike the previous 2 seasons where it was a mirror image of what we've seen this time around. Ki boss, batting to kar raha hai apna kaam, but bowlers were just not backing them up. Now let us throw it open. First, let's start with Anirudh. Punjab Kings, in terms of how the season panned, let's start with what went right for them. What are the names that come to your mind and what are the points that come to your mind?
I think what went right was heading into the season, we were looking at them as more of a top-heavy side. So for them, the last couple of years, I think he's played for 3 years. Shah Rukh Khan has been with them for 3 years. This is the year they obviously let go of him and decided to bring in Shashank and Ashutosh. I don't know how much of it was planned, how much of it wasn't planned. But again, so that was one thing which clearly worked for them because their top order completely flunked. I mean, except for a couple of innings from Bairstow and Riley Rasu and a few innings from Prabh Simran Singh, in terms of consistency, it was just not there, right? So it was the heavy lifting by the likes of Shashank and Ashutosh. And remember, it was a comment by Abbas also. Jitesh actually had a horrendous season. At the start of the season, he was on course to being picked for India's T20 World Cup. Midway through the season, he was not even in contention, and rightly so. Quite simply, I mean, one of the things is to get out, not play well. But the way he got out consistently, the back of the length deliveries, getting bounced out, I think that was a big weakness which was exposed this season, and he just couldn't find a way throughout the season, right? I mean, the last game of the season, he obviously came out with a decent cameo, but apart from that, throughout the season, he almost did not perform. I think he averaged before the last game, his average was 12 at a strike rate of 122. And considering how those guys around him performed, especially the middle and the lower middle order, you would expect a lot more from an Indian international, someone who played for India just a couple of months ago, right? So I think Jitesh was a big disappointment for them. Conversely, of course, the likes of Shashank and Ashutosh did really well. In terms of bowling, I think again Harshal Patel had a really underrated season. I think perception, somehow I've told this many times as well, but perception doesn't help in sport, and he's kind of had this perception that he gets these free wickets or these wickets where easy wickets, right? But still he has to bowl in these difficult phases. He's someone who bowls these difficult overs, and considering how many bowlers have got smashed, his overall economy of 9.7 and being able to take 24 wickets, if I'm not wrong. I think that's a really, really good season. So that's one. Arshdeep, I know he's not had the worst season in terms of wickets, but I think overall he's had a really disappointing season, considering that he's going to be one of India's first choice pacers come the future as well, not just this T20 World Cup. Even going forward, he's one of those prospects India are looking at, right? So you'd expect slightly more from Arshdeep Singh. But again, talking about the talents which you mentioned, Akshay, I think I'm just going to repeat what I told about Mumbai, in the sense, how much is it useful? Like, so many of these talents are there, but how many of them can you end up keeping come next season? We haven't spoken about retentions yet when it comes to Punjab, but how many of them can you actually end up keeping? So that's a big problem for them. Come next season, I think one thing they need to do is find a leader, whether that's Sam Curran or someone else. They need to find a leader. I think that's been a problem for them since KL Rahul has left. They've had Shikhar Dhawan. This season, they had three leaders. I know Shikhar's injuries kind of played a role, but again, that shows, right, the fact that you started off with Mayank Agarwal in the cycle, and then within a season, you deemed him, okay, he's not good enough with the bat, so we sack him, and you go to Shikhar Dhawan, who's basically never led at any level consistently. And then this season, clearly something's gone wrong, because I don't believe that he's been injured for 12 games in a row, 10 or 12 games in a row, which he's missed, right? So something's gone wrong there as well. So either you back Sam Curran, which I'm not completely convinced, in the sense, I don't know how much he's worth when it comes to when you've got an impact player rule. If he's not got the impact player rule, I can understand retaining a player like him, but when you've got the impact player rule, I'm not quite sure how much he's worth. But again, it's their choice to make, and that's the first thing they need to sort of find a leader, whoever that is, inside or outside, and back him. And then they need some luck as well. That's clearly something they don't have. I think we discussed through the season as well that through the history of the IPL, they have the lowest percentage when it comes to tosses won. So there are things out of your control, which again you can't do too much about. But you'd hope that at some point luck changes for them, because they are a franchise who tried a lot of different things. To be fair, I think they're a franchise who have done worse decisions and still had better results, whereas Punjab, who haven't qualified for a playoff since 2014, that's a whole 10 years now, 10 seasons without playoffs. That's really, really disappointing, considering the IPL is supposed to be a league where every team has equal purses, right? So except for one, of course, but then you've got every team, you've got 10 teams with equal purses. You'd expect Punjab to at least break the rut at some point, and they'll need to be really harsh on themselves, I feel, because you can't keep blaming luck as well, because it's been 10 years of very, very poor performances. They need to go back and find a way and say that this is the way to success, and back it, whether that's coach, captain, whoever that may be. Make that decision and back on it and hope that it works, because I think they're a franchise which, because you watch some of the players they do and they have, and you kind of feel like they need to succeed, right? In the sense, like, you feel bad because they play some really good cricket as well. They're probably the most entertaining team to watch, in the sense most of the games do go close, and you'd hope that at some point results do change for them. So again, we'll have to just wait and see what they do going forward. We'll speak about retentions, and then I think we can get into a lot more detail.
100%. And to be honest, yeah, I genuinely feel for Punjab and its fans. You know, like Anirudh mentioned, they've genuinely been a very unlucky franchise. And I don't just talk about results. Toss is something I'm very, very, very particular about. I love looking at toss numbers. Bhai, 5 auction cycle hua hai. 4 times have they had a very, very, very below average sort of, performance, I would say, with the toss, wherein they've either ranked 7th or below when it comes to success with the toss. Only once Did they have an above average success with tosses? And this goes on to show. I know we can't, of course, blame that. That would be very stupid if someone went on to say, "Yeah, this is the reason why we're not making it." Sure, you can probably say कि if that went your way, maybe it could have helped with those tiny 1%ers. But भाई बाकी 99% भी तो उस पे कौन काम करेगा यार? तुम 1% पे अटके रहोगे तो फायदा नहीं है. But anyways, since Anirudh has already elaborately spoken about Punjab Kings, Nikhil bhai, quickly, if you had to sort of pick a few good things that went right for them, because Prabhsimran Singh is a name you're not particularly fond of, how would you look at the season? Because a lot of expectations were sort of had off of him as well.
Yeah, I think it is also a summary of their struggles because you think of Punjab, you think of so many openers that they have tried who are all explosive, but they all haven't quite worked out. Like to me, they're always a team who's Jai Mata Di. Ke you'll either get a 60 score from them or you'll get a very entertaining 20, but that's it. But you can't afford that from your top order. You need a top order to either give you consistent 150 strike rate, 40, 45 runs, or you have an anchor who's going to bat deep, which allows the others to bat that way. So I think they've always kind of struggled with their identity as well in terms of what do they want to do. In the recent times, we've seen them go all one way that, okay, we'll be aggressive, everybody will bat at a high strike rate, but then are you picking the right guys? The guys that you're picking are Johnny Bairstow, Riley Russo. Now, those guys, they'll give you scores where you'll want to put them on planes with best of the game. But when they don't, you'll not even want to give them a chance to be part of the setup. So, Prabh Simran is just that name. And I'm very happy that they gave him enough time. But again, as Anirudh spoke about Jitesh, my problem with that top order is the manner of dismissals. You can sit and easily kind of plan that, okay, this is where you can get Bairstow. This is where you can get Riley Russo. This is how you can tie Shikhar Dhawan down. This is how Prabh Simran can get out. Back of length into the body, he'll try and hit leg side, get caught at point. Now, you don't want this to happen. You can do this for every player. But for them to have some potency where the opposition should also be scared that, they are a side which is high on intent. But if that intent is going to reflect into averages of 25, 30 odd, strike rate of 140, it's not going to scare opponents because by the time the innings ends, you'll have Brahars and Harshal Patel's batting. It can't happen for you as a side. So I think as a whole, Punjab, they're probably on the right way in terms of identifying youngsters and identifying the type of play that they want. Now, the next thing is to find a bit more balance that, okay, maybe we need somebody more who's more stable in the top three, maybe two of the top four. The other two can still be aggressive. But for the people like Prabh Simran, I expect them to start having seasons where they are scoring at 40 average and having a higher strike rate. Thoda strike rate 140 ka bhi रहेगा तो भी okay. But like they did yesterday, Atharva Tade and Prabh Simran Singh, that was so good to see. But you need more of that to happen. It can't happen just. I think in this entire edition, the most 50s that they have is with Shashank and Prabh Simran, two. How will you win like that? So I think in terms of batting order, that is something that I'm hoping that they sort. And of course, for me, the bigger win for them is Sam Curran, the captain. Because Shikhar Dhawan ko aapne enough try kar liya hai. The difference is very vast in terms of how Shikhar captains and how Sam Curran captains. So hopefully he is retained because he's probably been one of the best captains in this season as well.
Interesting. Sam Curran's captaincy, Harshal Patel, of course, and Shashank, Ashutosh, some of those talents, definitely things that they can be happy about, things that they can look back to with, certain fondness. But Jeet, coming to you, in terms of things that didn't work for them, what do you have to say for that?
So again, primarily, I believe that it was the overseas batters and the kind of volatility that they bring to the side. Johnny Bairstow had a very underwhelming season, barring that one century that he got. Then there was Liam Livingston, who has been struggling quite consistently. He had a good run, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. But after that, if you look at his numbers against spin in particular, he's been quite woeful. Of course, it was not helped by the injury that he had as well. But it was very similar. I mean, you ball that leg break, you ball those googlies, just time up with those variations, and he's going to get dismissed. It was too straightforward to dismiss him. Riley Russo, again, a very, very highly volatile batter that we always know. It's either a duck or a big score, maybe a 50 plus. So again, I mean, that combo didn't sit well with me. You need somebody who's really stable, somebody who can add value to your home ground. So again, PBKS face a very similar situation to, I'll again refer to Welsh Fire for the 100, since their also home ground is very, very challenging. So constructing a squad that suits your home ground is very, very vital. Now, if you look at the record this season, they had the lowest wins at home. They just managed to win one game out of the 7 at home. And if you look at the strength that started Mullapur, it was probably against SRS that went till GT. So they had 4 back-to-back games at Mullapur. They lost all of them. I understand it was your first season and you had this new venue as your home ground. And in the future, honestly, it's a good venue for them. It will be suited to PBKs if they have the right batters for those particular conditions, which they didn't really have this time around. Not all of them, of course. So they have very similar situation that Welshfire faces. The home ground is challenging. You've got to have a squad that is going to do well over there. So the overseas batters also failed. I think they had a combined average of 27. And while the strike rate was high, it's not what you would want from 3 batters who are known to be really, really good. So that was Riley Russo, Liam Livingston, and Johnny Best. I'm not counting Sam Curran in this because he still had a longer or a bigger role to play with the ball as well. So just these 3 batters, average of 27, that doesn't cut out for me. Jitesh Sharma,
considering 2 seasons combined, by the way, not just 1 out of 7 this season, it's 2 out of 14, even including last season where they played at Mohali and not Mumbai.
Yeah, so this time again, their home shifted to Mullapur and they had the same issues continuing. So last time it was Mohali, this time Mullapur, and the issues continued. So again, that squad is something they need to focus upon. Then something that Anirudh discussed, Jitesh Sharma, he had a horrible run. Again, an outstanding player who was scouted earlier, probably 3 seasons back, had a very, very disappointing season, very, very similar patterns of dismissal. And he averaged 17 by the end of the tournament. Highest score of 32 not out, which came in the very last game and it was done and dusted. So again, a very underwhelming season from somebody who was your key figure in the lower middle order to finish off the innings and provide those quick cameos. He couldn't do that, sadly. Next thing, again, spinners. While, on paper, Harpreet Brar bowled well, Rahul Chair took wickets, but the Pacers took 84 wickets at an average of 22, but the spinners took 20 wickets at an average of 35. They did well in patches. Again, there is no arguing with that. But Harpreet Brar still ended up averaging well over 40. Despite keeping it tight, it still didn't work well. So the spinners somehow couldn't control those middle overs that the way PBKs would have wanted. They couldn't support the Pacers. Rahul Chair again did well in picking up wickets, averaged 27-28, but again was very expensive. Someone like Liam Livingston had to chip in and he did a decent job. But that spin attack somehow didn't really gel well. Rahul Chair, something that we've been talking about, right? He has those leg break, and this time finally we saw a few more googlies come out from him. So that was again good. But as a package, the spin attack slightly underperformed. Had they also come to the party and supported the Pacers, maybe things could have been a lot more different. So that's probably something to look at as well for them.
We finally have the ritual done for the day with Akshay speaking on mute.
In my defense, it's because my mic has gotten disconnected. I hope it gets connected soon. And just a second. There we go. Yeah. But a couple of very interesting points, especially that home venue, given that it's changed now. Let's hope that this has been, a lesson learned for them, and come the mega auction, they can come up with the team focusing Mullapur and ensuring that they can build a fortress around their home venue, because Mullapur definitely has more than Mohali. To put it simply, there's definitely an edge that they can sort of hold on to in terms of trying to make it difficult for visiting teams to win compared to, say, Mohali. But again, it'll solely depend on how you sort of go about building their code, building what they would think would be a title-winning team. Now, coming to that, Jeet, in terms of retentions, you have a few very interesting names there. But yeah, let's start with that. What are the retentions you've earmarked for Punjab Kings ahead of the mega auction? All right. And I'm not sure if it's me or is Jeet still there.
Yeah, he's there, but I think is probably on mute or gone something. But the names that you can see are again very straightforward. Yeah, you can.
There we go. Finally, technical issues aside. So, Jeet, in terms of retentions, of course.
Yeah. So again, you can't. At least I wouldn't overlook Arshdeep and Harshal Patel, 2 bowlers who won the top 3 wicket takers this season. Harshal, again, we talked about him. Arshdeep, again, he had a bad season in terms of stemming the run flow. He was quite wavered as well. Got the wickets, got the job done, but at the end of the day, he's still a left arm option and somebody who could really come good in the future. Again, a local lad, you've got to back him to get the job done. Mullapur, Mohali, whatever the home ground is in the future. These two, I wouldn't look past them because there's a lot of value in these two. Then I'll stick with Jitesh. I know he had a bad season, but at the end of the day, we know what that guy possesses. That lower middle order wicket keeping option, dude, I'm not letting go of Jitesh despite that bad season. There are things to work upon. That's fine. It can be worked upon, but I wouldn't let go of him, and I'll keep that wicket keeping option intact with me. Number 4 is Atharva Taide as the uncapped player, and that's purely for the reason that again I'm letting go of Shikhar Dhawan. So I need that left arm option who can get the job. A young left arm option who can get the job done. Again, a very good batter, a very conventional batter to put it very, very clearly. Again, this guy has had a decent run in the T20 format as well, and in the limited opportunities that this guy got, including yesterday, we saw the kind of talent he possesses. So again, not somebody I would let go of, and somebody that I'll invest for the future because there is talent in Atharva Taide, plus again that additional bowling option. Overseas, Sam Curran, at least for me, is a no-brainer. I don't want to let go of him. I know there is a lot of value. So that allows my bowling attack to be sorted. The core bowling attack, I would say, which is, of course, Harshal, Arshdeep, and Sam Curran. The pace trio was really, really good, and the top 3 wicket takers for PBKS this season. I have to keep these 3 guys in my side no matter what. Again, Sam Curran also had a few contributions with the bat. Handy guy to have. Where he bats is a different thing altogether. Again, very situation oriented, but a very, very handy all-rounder to have, and I wouldn't let go of that guy. Last guy who I was still quite 50-50 and quite split on is Liam Livingston. Again, this guy's had a bad run, but knowing that Mullapur is potentially going to be the home venue going in the next few seasons, and I know the kind of conditions they have over there, if this guy is fully fit, those conditions cannot get better for Liam Livingston to deliver. Those proper flat conditions with slightly shorter square boundaries, it gets Liam Livingston right into the picture with his typical golf swings. He's going to come right in the picture. And again, he did decently with the ball as well. Sadly, again, a season that was hampered by injury. But if this guy is fully fit, this guy can be of a very, very high value at the home games and can literally get you a few wins, which is really important. 2-3 wins this guy is going to give you. That's for sure, because that is what he does. That is what he's known for. And again, a very, very handy middle order batter to get the job done.
जोर जोर के बोल के स्कीम है बता दो यार. मतलब लिविंगस्टन सबको चाहिए भाई. Of course, he's definitely a very solid option to have, but very interesting names यार. I'm going to throw this open to Anirudh and Nikhil because I want to believe Atharva Taide and Jitesh Sharma aren't your popular choices. But before that, of course, Shlok bhai, auntie, hello, in case you are listening to us, जानते हैं भाई, regular viewer है हमारे. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marathi अगर गलत होता है तो मला माहिती. Is that right? I know. हाँ, शाबाश. जानता है, मेरे को सब पता है. अभी Nikhil bhai, let's start with you in terms of retentions. Agree with all the names there. Anything you want to add? Any name you want to add?
No, I think it's fair. Even the domestic options that he wants to retain are fair. And again, I'm not counting Liam in domestic there, but you can count him if you want to because numbers to वैसे ही रहे उसके. But you get the package. So, and that is very tempting. And again, it's also, if Sam is retained, I'm very interested to see if he is their future face in terms of captaincy and leading the side because he's probably been a distant away from KL Rahul, Shikhar Dhawan, and everybody else as a leader in terms of how he understands. Now, the ploy that he had of bowling Rahul Chair to MS, that is, you need that kind of spark, to use the right word, to stand out, to start standing out with in terms of other options. So I know Atharva Taide is probably a differential in terms of an option to pick, but if they give him the run that they have with Prabh Simran, I think Atharva will give you a lot more than what Prabh has. And if they continue to bat in conditions, as Jeet said in terms of Mullapur, then he's someone who can give you those consistent starts. Yes, there are issues where he can be found out, but if you can give the run that you have to some of the overseas guys, I would rather take the punt with Atharva and others so that you are eventually building a good core for the future. So I would probably have, if they wanted more uncapped retentions, I wouldn't go down the route side. I'd not retain Brar. I would want to keep Brar as well because he's a very, very good left-arm spinner, one of the best, and he needs good usage because all the spinners in this IPL have done well who have good captains. And again, it is not an understatement that it is true in terms of spinners depending on captain. So agree with those thoughts. Liam probably an outside chance, but yeah, Atharva, I'm very happy to see him there.
Interesting. Anirudh, what about you?
I mean, I think we've spoken enough about Punjab to know that I've disagreed with quite a number of picks from Jeet there. One, I really like Livingston for what it's worth. Two concerns for me. One is 33. Two is increasingly becoming more injury prone. I want to see what happens in the next 6 months because he had a really horrible run with England as well just before the IPL. I know he played a couple of decent knocks even this season despite not being at his best. And I really, really rate Liam Livingston. It's just that for me, the injuries is a big concern. And going into a mega auction, I'm not quite sure whether I want to park 8 or 10 crores, whatever the amount is, on him. Because if I'm not getting 14 games out of him, is it really worth it? I know he's got this package of bowling leg spin as well, leg spin, off spin, as well as being an incredible middle order batter. I'm just concerned about his injury. So for me, wait and watch is what with Livingston. Sam Curran, I retain if he's my captain and if impact player rule is going, which I think is likely. So Sam Curran, I agree. Arshdeep Singh, as I said, I mean, the problem is Arshdeep Singh hasn't had the greatest of seasons, but then he's got so much potential, you cannot let go of him too. Harshal Patel, again, if you let go of him, you will end up spending the same amount to buy him back, so might as well keep him. Agree there. Jitesh Sharma is a cap player. So, I mean, again, I'm looking at it from a budget perspective. You've got at least three uncapped players apart from Atharva that I am looking at: Shashank Singh, Harpreet Brar, and Prabsimran Singh. The reason I have to go with Shashank Singh.
Nowhere in the pecking order.
Ashutosh, unfortunately, not because a couple of issues here. One, Shashank does a really difficult role batting at 4 and 5. So I'm almost tempted to go with him. I know it's just been one season, but you cannot let go of him simply because if he goes into the auction, he's going to go big anyway, right? So keep him and hope that he comes good. The toss up between Harpreet and Prabsimran comes between your choice. For me, Prabsimran is a wicketkeeper option, so that for me you don't have to go down Jitesh. You can buy back Jitesh if the auction allows you to do so, but Prabsimran is a wicketkeeper option, whereas Harpreet Brar again is a left-arm spinner who, for me, has been Punjab's best spinner. I know Rahul Chahar had a really good season, but Harpreet Brar was outstanding. He bowled some really, really difficult overs, and sometimes he actually wasn't trusted by like Shikhar Dhawan. Only when Sam came into play, Sam used him in a at least in a much better way, and I really rate Harpreet Brar. And he's obviously, I think this season, we didn't see too much of it, but I still feel his batting's gone about 10-15% better than where it was in terms of coming in and giving that late flourish towards the end. So it's a very tough call between Prabsimran and Harpreet Brar for me. If I can retain 3 uncapped, I'd retain all 3 personally because it allows you to fix 2 options. With Harpreet Brar, you've got the number 7, number 8. Assuming there's no impact play, you could have Sam Curran at 7, you could have Harpreet Brar at 8, and you've got Harshal at 9. So that kind of extends your batting order as well. And then Prabsimran at the top of the order becomes a wicket-keeping option. So my retentions in that way would be 3 uncapped players, followed by Harshal Patel, Arshdeep Singh, and Sam Curran.
Interesting. And of course, Punjab Kings also in a very weird way have sort of to suffer from that problem of plenty. They will have a happy headache in terms of who do they stick to, what sort of a core are they looking at. So I'm guessing the way they would look at it is first to identify what sort of a team do they want, what sort of a playing 11 do they want to field, and basis that, then probably they can take a call on who do they want to retain. For example, if Punjab Kings decide, ki boss, you know what, we've seen the likes of SRH, KKR, RCB win a certain way, and we want to play that attacking brand of cricket. For all you know, Prabsimran Singh might get the nod ahead of someone like Jitesh Sharma because they would want someone like that. You never know. There's so many other factors at play. So it's going to be very interesting. Again, even from Punjab Kings perspective, कि किसको रखेंगे वो? Because make no mistake, the players they let go of will be sorted by other teams. 100%.
I love how you told RCB Akshay there, just there.
I'm not.
I love how you told RCB there.
I've not included. I have no team.
But you just told. You said the way SRH, KKR, and RCB played at attacking brand of cricket.
I want
see
to
the reason I say Prabsimran is because the wicket keeping option. See, their perspective should be that supply demand issue. Obviously, you've got to analyze. I'd hope that their analysts are working in terms of having a supply demand issue. How many options are there for the top order options, how many are there for the middle order finisher options, and then make your choices accordingly. Because see, they haven't got a clear-cut option. They can play around with their retention in many ways. I mean, what Jeet said was fair. I can understand his perspective in terms of having a solid top order bat. It's just that when you've got someone like Shashank who's potentially uncapped, I don't understand why do you want to retain this, simply because you can save that money there, right? So I'm just looking at it from that perspective. Again, Livingston is also
But
someone
again,
I'm really tempted about.
would be very surprised if Shashank doesn't get a cap before the mega auction. So
He
you'll
could.
also
If
have
he
to-
does get a cap also, then that again brings about a different conversation altogether. Then
Interesting. Anyway, so that's it from Punjab Kings in terms of the conversations we had. What went right for them? What went wrong for them? Importantly, what are the kind of means they can look to retain ahead of the mega auction? Time for us to quickly move on to the third and the last team for the day. Funnily enough, we have two Gujus, but it's a Tamilian going for Gujarat Titans because of the Tamil flavor, the strong Tamil flavor that their squad possess. But Anirudh, Gujarat Titans, a bang average season to say the least.
you'd say that in some ways, I'm just going to look at it from a 3-year cycle perspective. You had two outstanding seasons. The again going back to mega auction again here. After the 22 mega auction, I'm not sure about you, but I'm pretty sure the majority of the opinions were that they did not have the greatest of times. And considering that they've won a title, they made a final, and this season hasn't gone too well for them, you'd still take it, right, as a 3-year cycle. Couple of things didn't go for them. One, Shami was a big loss for them. Before the season, they did not know at the time of the auction that Mohammad Shami won't be available, and that was a huge loss for them. And another interesting thing, you could call it a mess up. I would call it a mess up. They had the biggest purse going into the auction, and they've spent it on 10 crores of Spencer Jones, who I wasn't convinced of. In the sense, was he your nailed on first choice bowler? Probably not. Azmatullah, who had a great package, but could he have gone and bought a proper top order bat, someone like Daryl Mitchell? Because you had to replace Hardik Pandya, who's batting at 3 or 4, right? Could you have gone like someone like Mitchell? Obviously, Brook didn't play the season, but I was looking at the likes of Mitchell and Brook being the potential number 3 or number 4. So I'd go back to the auction and say that you had the money because you obviously let go of Hardik Pandya and you had the money to kind of fill holes. But then you kind of didn't make the right choices. And heading into the season, I think the problem again this season was that their batsmen weren't too consistent. You can understand why. Shubman Gill, first time captain, he had a good start to the season, but he had a mini rut towards the second half, and then he obviously finished off well against Chennai Super Kings. But then before that innings, he had a mini five game run where he scored about 60 runs only. And Sai Sudarshan was probably the more consistent batter. Probably lacked explosiveness in certain phases of games, but overall he still performed and provided consistent scores. But outside of that, their batting kind of lacked any sort of consistency. David Miller was in and out because of injury. I mean, looking at their overseas option, Azmat, Matthew Wade didn't do too much with the bat. Rahul Tewatia had the game here and there, but I mean, by the time he'd come into bat, it was almost game done in many of the situations, right? So it's kind of unfair to kind of, I feel, blame him or say that he's probably not had the greatest of seasons as well. Coming on to their bowling attack, Rashid Khan probably had his worst IPL season. Not probably, I think the numbers back there as well. He had the worst IPL season he's ever had. Couple of reasons for that. One, he's coming from a very, very serious injury. I think he played only a couple of T20s for Afghanistan before the IPL. So he had almost next to no cricket for a big chunk. I think 6 months after the 23 World Cup, right? So that was an understandable reason because he's someone who's performed for a good 6 or 7 years right now. So it's kind of understandable that someone coming off, and Ashwin actually, Ravichandran Ashwin specifically spoke about the kind of injury Rashid Khan had, because Rashid is someone whose action uses a lot of back, and his injury was related to the back. And his action, if you can see it actually on TV, you know that he's someone who a lot of the power he generates is through the back, right? So it's kind of understandable that he wasn't consistent, because one area of concern for Rashid was getting the lengths right. His pace was almost in the same region, the usual high 90s, close to 95 to 100 region, but then the lengths was the problem because he used to often drop the ball short, and that's something you don't often associate with Rashid. In terms of positives, I think Noor Ahmed was a huge positive for them. I think they didn't start the season with Noor, but I think even the first watch long, I did see that I feel that Rashid becomes a lot more effective with Noor as well. And I did not think Spencer Johnson was an X-factor player, whereas Noor Ahmed, for me, is an X-factor player in terms of being able to turn the ball both ways, and many batsmen struggling against him. I think he was a positive. Indian pacers, I mean, they gave the likes of Darshan Nalkande, Sandeep Warrior, Mohit Sharma games. Mohit won a couple of games for them. Fair play. I mean, the age of 36, he's done an outstanding job. He could again be bought back next season if they want to. But I'm just looking at it from a 3-year cycle, because Mega Auction 22, you did not think they'd end up with title, runners up, and a mid-table finish, right? So from that perspective, you're happy. At the same time, I think they've got the most exciting retention course. So we haven't spoken about the retention, but I was going through it when you had asked me to send yesterday. And for me, they have the most exciting retention course simply because of the age brackets these guys fall into and the potential some of these cricketers have. So once we get into the retentions, I think we can talk a lot more in detail.
Fair enough. In fact, they were the only team to have a win percentage in excess of 60. They won 62% of their games. I'm 100% sure at the end of the mega auction in 2022, no one would have imagined something like this, a cycle like this for them. So they definitely should be proud of how this cycle has panned out for them. For a team playing the IPL for the first time, winning a title and finishing finalists in the first 2 seasons, that's a feat that not a lot of teams can boast of. But talking about what went right for them, of course, quite a few names that Anirudh did speak about, a couple of things, in terms of Noor Ahmed, if probably brought in earlier, could have probably had a bigger impact, but not to be the case. Nikhil bhai, in terms of the performances, the individual names, if you have to look at it, their highest run scorer, I'm guessing the name a lot of us did think of, unlike Punjab Kings or Mumbai Indians, Sai Sudarshan was the name we all were looking forward to, right?
Yes, 100%. And of course, for Gujarat Titans, I wanted to just say something in Gujarati કે તમારી tagline છે આવા દે તો આવા દેમાં બધું આવી ગયું. So in an auction cycle, the tagline that you had આવા દે તમને ડ્રામા મળી ગયો, તમારો કેપ્ટન ગયો, તમને નવો કેપ્ટન મળ્યો, તમને બે સ્પિનર પણ મળી ગયા, તમને એક્સ્ટ્રા ઓસ્ટ્રેલિયા પૈસા પણ મળ્યા. So આવા દેમાં you have to close the gate someday, and I think they forgot to close that gate. Even Mohit Sharma ko bhi records आवादे हो गया, मतलब probably a mean reversion of sorts for the entire franchise as a whole, and it just, I wouldn't say it validates what we thought of them in the first place, that how is this team set up like this, and then when they go on to be part of 2 finals, everybody's like, dude, see, this is how cricket works and all of that. But then if you watch enough cricket, you understand those things, they don't happen very often. Now, David Miller suddenly hitting prime form just for that one season when everything else is clicking just at the right time, it doesn't always happen. That someday Tewatia becomes your god, someday Rashid Khan becomes your god, somebody else is stepping up. Now, when it doesn't happen, this is the season how it looks like. So in all of that muddle, of course, Sai stood up in terms of probably had a run of being the batter with most number of double-digit scores without getting out of single digit. But the problem there was how much of it was actually helping the side in terms of building the platform. So without Hardik Pandya, without Shami, and without Miller filing, they had to get an overpass score for the bowling attack. But what eventually ended up is they stuck to the same format that they had, that okay, we'll build slowly, we'll be 45, 60 odd. They were one of the slowest sides in the power play. Again, till they suddenly woke up against in terms of Chennai only, that they figured out, we need to bat like this, and they picked out Chennai as the franchise for that. Happy for that, but something like a Sai Kishore. There were games where you were puzzled that, okay, yes, Sandeep Maury has taken wickets, but you already have new ball bowling options. They potentially, in terms of options, they replaced enough people that, okay, Hardik Karol, I have Azmatullah Omarzai, new ball value, but then are you getting enough wickets? So Sandeep Maury took an entire season to match power play wickets. Now you can't have a season where you have to wait so long for that. So in terms of positives, yes, I think Sai was probably the only positive, but even the strike rate of 140, maybe you want one such player. They had 2-3 of them. And we discussed this last year as well, that how did they not pick Phil Salt? How? They could have picked anybody else. I am completely okay with options in terms of replacement for Hardik, but Phil Salt was right up there for them to take it and go. You get quick starts, you get a wicket keeper, you had to play Saha, you had to wait. Cricket will get to you one day. So, and that's what happened with Gujarat.
I mean, I remember just visualizing कि हाँ Salt तो अहमदाबाद में खेलने ही वाला है. It's a given. मतलब ये तो जा ही रहा है. इसके बाद किसको लेंगे? Yeah, very, very, very surprising. Like Abhas also mentioned in the comments. But Jeet, coming to you, bowling, of course, was a reason to worry for them because, of course, Mohammad Shami, like Anirudh mentioned, wasn't available for them. Rashid Khan, with the injury and the comeback, wasn't as good as they expected it to be. They were struggling for options and how. The thing is, a lot of it was also self-created because उमेश यादव, दर्शन नालकंडे स्पेशलिस्ट फील्डर बना फिर रहा है, उमेश यादव और मोहित शर्मा को आप चांस पे चांस दे रहे हो, कार्तिक त्यागी वहां पे बेंच पे बैठा है. Just did not make a lot of sense, but also probably a reason why their best bowler is Mohit Sharma. But all in all, what did you make of his season?
So Mohit had a very good start to the season, like we saw. So the conditions were favoring him. There were slightly slower tracks at Ahmedabad, so it was bringing in his slow ball variations into play. But then, as soon as he started going outside of Ahmedabad, where there were flat pitches or small dimensions, like say at the Arun Jaitley Stadium, that is where he started getting exposed because those same slow ball variations are not working out. So your metal is tested when you have difficult conditions to ball in. And that is where I don't feel he had a good run because it was a consistent run, I believe, that started against, was it DC? So that consistent poor run started against DC and he had that run for 3 games flat out. And the numbers were absolutely horrible. So again, a very mixed bag for even Mohit Sharma. And it was very clear, like, it's very similar to what applies to even Harshal Patel, that he's a very conditions-oriented bowler. If he bowls on tracks which has some assistance for him, then he's going to succeed. But if the flatter pitches are there or smaller dimensions are at play, then that is where they are really tested. And that is where they really struggle to perform equally as well as they would have done in favorable conditions. So, again, a very mixed bag. But again, I mean, someone like Ashish Nehra, please get out of Jayant Yadav's ears and other players' ears. By seekne do. Don't be at the boundary line constantly in their ears telling them what to do. Let them learn. It was Shubman Gill's first season as a captain. Let him learn. It's okay. Let him make the mistake. You can afford it. Gujarat won in the inaugural season and finished as the runners-up in the next. You can afford to have a bad season. That's fine. I know it was a horrendous season, but that's fine. You've had a very good start to your career as a franchise. Let them learn, yaar. Pehla season, don't be in their ears. Bichar Jayant Yadav, he was scared. He was literally scared all the time. So something for Ashish Nehra to just be a little bit mellow. Let them learn. Let these players get better and better.
For sure, man. And also, Nehra ji to bhai alag level pe chal rahe the. We remember the clips sort of going around ki har baar baat kare ja rahe. I remember this one time where he's talking to Sai Sudarshan at third or something. वो बेचारा सोच भी रहा है कि भाई मैं तो बॉलर हूं भी नहीं, क्यों मुझे क्यों पका रहे हो यार, रहने दो, खेलने दो उनको. But yeah, unfortunately, despite it not being as good a season as a lot expected it to be, they don't have to be too flustered because at the end of the day, they played 12 games and they won 5 out of it. Sure, a below average season, but not a horrible season. Like they can still sort of count their stars given the kind of injuries they had to sort of put up with. Their lead pacer not available, their lead spinner not in good nick. Despite that, being able to win 5 out of 12, I would probably say that, they've punched above their weight and they should just sort of take it in their stride. And given the kind of playing 11 calls they came up with at times. So yeah, I mean, there aren't too many things that they can sort of look at and say, कि यार अगर ये change कर देते तो बस playoff spot अपना था. But Anirudh, in terms of what did not go wrong for them, of course, selections, playing 11 choices, something we did spoke about briefly, but what do you make of it? And again, Ashish Nehra as a coach, we know, like, again, this is stemming from my personal bias, but RCB के साथ वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा average थे. And I'm being polite here, very polite. Because even in the first 2 seasons, there's nothing that you can say tactically Gujarat have been good. वो clutch, the sort of, the buzzword being clutch, जहाँ पे Rahul Tewatia came clutch for them, David Miller came clutch for them, there were times when Vijay Shankar came clutch for them, everyone, मतलब पता नहीं कहाँ का clutch चुरा लिया था उन लोगों ने, but भाई साहब तो clutch पे clutch knocks किए जा रहे थे वहाँ पे. So how do you look at that? Like, what were the things that went wrong for them?
I'm just going to use the word Nikhil used, mean reversion. I don't think he is a genius. I don't think he's someone who's dumb either. I think somewhere in the middle, just like most coaches, I think there's only so much a coach can do when you get it into the season, right? Of course, when it comes to auction strategy and auction taxes, which I spoke about earlier, that's something you control. But then when you get into the season, I don't think there's too much you can do. From that perspective, what Ashish Nehra did through the season, I think, he had these issues with the team in the first place. So I don't think there's too much they could have done to kind of finish too much higher than what they finished, which is 8th, right? So from that perspective, I can understand. Ashish Nehra, I mean, just even a year ago, all the talks were, okay, he should be the next India coach. I mean, he can be the next India coach. I'm not saying that he should not be. At the same time, I don't think I don't see him as the outstanding candidate. I'm just going to use the same thing for Gautam Gambhir right now because KK are doing brilliantly. They're flying. They're top of the league. They're one of the favorites to win the IPL. So now Gautam Gambhir should apparently be the next India coach. I'm not saying again that Gambhir should not be the next India coach. I'm just saying that there is no outstanding option either way for you to say that this guy is the best or this guy is the worst. So my perspective, Ashish Nehra, again, I'm just going back to the fact that they've had a great start to their tenure as an IPL team. You've had probably both, I'd put both Gujarat and Lucknow in the same boat in the sense you've both had a really, really solid start. You've got a good set of players to retain as well. Go and build another great team right now. Especially with Gujarat, I'm really excited. I think if you can put up the retentions graphic up, where I can speak about the retentions because that's
we will get to it in due course. Anirudh bhai is just being very impatient. Mumbai में मेरे को बोलने को नहीं मिला. अभी गुजरात में पूरा बोलेंगे. We'll definitely get to it. But just to close the what went wrong for them bit, Nikhil bhai, your thoughts on the kind of players they backed, the kind of like Manav Sudhar got the nod ahead of Sai Kishore at the Chinnaswamy Stadium. Like,
See, and again,
I don't think I would have ever made. Sorry.
No, but I think the problem there was maybe if you go by the word, he was injured side. But again, the problem here is sometimes with franchises like GT, when you have a very great first 2 years, as I said with the batting, they wanted to stick to what they had tried in the past. That okay, we'll try and just repeat the same thing that we did with different personnel. But what you have to realize is not everybody reacts to the same role in the same way. Something Chennai have experienced this year, something Lucknow have also experienced that some people don't mind the flexibility, but some people do. Like Darshan Nalkande at times was just in. They did this last year as well when Alzari Joseph bowled just 1 over in that game. This season also you had a game where Darshan bowled just 1 over in the game. Now you don't always have to stick to it. You have to try and get more people in the game, but for that you need a very open captain. So again, I'll not put it past Gill to learn from it, but it just tells you how much of captaincy is still executing management calls. So which is where I probably feel that Ashish Nehra probably for the first time I felt wasn't proactive enough in terms of having backup plans on the field. Because you see some of the games, you see the Delhi game, they allowed them to score almost 90% of the target before getting to Rashid Khan. Why? If he's injured, you don't play him. Or if you feel that okay, he can't bowl in the power play, then dude, at least try and break the change. You're saying I'll bowl 2 of my paces, 3 overs, kill the game by itself, and then bring on my Rashid. So those are the calls that make you pull your hair out that maybe the in-game tactics are just not there at this point of time. So it also gives you a fair reflection of how whatever worked last year is a result of a lot of factors in terms of Hardik being there, Shami being there, them setting it up, and then having those years around UK. This is more likely to work in your favor because now the teams have caught up with you. That is something both Lucknow and GT have experienced, that teams now know what you're going to do. They don't mind batting a certain way, bowling certain bands. Because as also Jeet said, the moment they went out of their comfort zone in terms of Ahmedabad, you saw Mohit struggling. You still did not see anything innovative from Gujarat. Noor Ahmed right through the season bowled middle and leg line to all right-handers. Of course, he has he's better to left-handers, but what is the spin coach doing there if he's not talking to the guy that bowled somewhere else? If it was very late in the season that he started to go around the wicket, that okay, now I'll start to bowl this angle and then things will happen. So it is probably a season of trying to just stick to your strengths, but then understanding that your strengths actually also depend on the individual. So probably a harsh season for them. But as you said, if you take out the top pacer, the key batter for them, every side is going to struggle and end up looking like this. Chennai have also ended up looking like that as well. If you think about it in terms of their lead, premier batters being out of form, missing Conway, missing Patriana. So it is something that many teams have observed. Hopefully, as Anirudh said, they have the core, but they will need a lot more in-game management to get better at to do well in the coming times.
Interesting. That's very succinctly put there. And now let's get to the retentions. But of course, Anirudh is waiting for that. He's excited about the coach. So let's look at the code he's gone ahead with. There you go, Anirudh. Anirudh, the stage's yours.
So quite simply, you cannot let go of Shubman Gill, Sai Sudarshan, Rashid Khan. I think these three are no-brainers. Mohammad Shami, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I know there are big injury concerns. He's at very much the fag end of his career. I'm just hoping that he pulls through here. This is more of a hope than expectations with Mohammad Shami. Noor Ahmed, again, if you let go of him, I think it's going to be very difficult to buy him back in the auction. He's so young. He's shown so much potential. Also, it just does not make sense for you to let go of him. It's not, I'd say, ideal to play two foreign spinners, but I think you can structure a team around two foreign spinners, and they're so good. And you've got Rashid Khan, who's equally good with the bat as well. And Rahul Tewatia, I mean, because he's uncapped, I'm really tempted by him. I think he will remain uncapped as well for the foreseeable future. And I mean, what can I even say? I mean, Tewatia has a gun with the bat, right? You just hope that he continues doing what he does. And he kind of ticks a big box in terms of being an Indian finisher, number 5, number 6, number 7, wherever you want to slot him, right? And he's got the calmness about him. You'd never think that he's a gun finisher looking at him, but then the way he's consistently pulled Gujarat Titans out of so many situations, I think you just got to back him. So you've got a captain here. You've got two outstanding top order batsmen in terms of Shubman being 24. I think Sai is 23 or 22, if I'm not wrong. Rashid Khan's young as well. Noor Ahmed's very young. Shami, fingers crossed, as I said. If he comes through, then you've got a really good Indian pacer who can at least cover two phases of the game. Top with the new ball and in the middle overs as well, even though he may not be the greatest at the death when it comes to Shami. And Tewatia is doing one of the toughest roles when it comes to Indian cricket, right? So I'm looking at these guys, and from here you can build guys around him. So you've used up 2 foreign slots in the 11, but even then you can still find a really good middle order player. And if you want a fast bowler, you can play around with the other slot depending on how the supply and demand concept works when it comes to the mega auction, and you can make your decisions accordingly. So I'd be looking at these 6 players, and the most exciting factor is that they're really young, at least 4 of these guys. And then you've got so much potential to build on. So yeah, for me, the most exciting core to retain when it comes to all of the 10 teams, I'd say.
I mean, it definitely is a very solid core. You've got a pacer, you've got your spin attack sorted, you've got potentially your opening pair sorted, and then you've got a domestic finisher. Nikhil, bhai, chip in here in terms of the names you saw there. Agree with it, disagree with it? Any name you would want to throw into that ring?
No, I think if you just can bring the graphic up, the potential options where you can even think of replacement is easy. Gill and Sai are locked. Now, the only problem there is whether you want to back Shami so much given his injury, as you know, he also pointed out about the injury status there. Rahul Tewatia, again, is a name where we discussed in the past that do you have any other all-rounder? Now, there are 2 options which I feel they could potentially look at if they don't want to back Rahul Tewatia. One of them is Abhinav Manohar, who I feel could be a very, very handy option for them in the lower middle order or even the middle order because they've struggled for that spot. Now, if they are not going to use Rahul Tewatia with the ball, then I think you having 2 overseas spinners is enough because you are very unlikely to play another one. So, you know, in terms of options with the bat, they lack that firepower. They let go of Shah Rukh Khan. They got they got Shah Rukh Khan, but are they going to back him? If not, they need one option there. Now, Rahul Tewatia, for all his promise, there is still a lot more for him to work on in terms of potential closing out options. So, whether it is Shah Rukh Khan or it is Abhinav Manohar, I think the 2 spots for Shami, fitness concern, and Rahul Tewatia, whether you feel you're going to use him with the ball because you're already not using Sai Kishore. Sai Kishore is not a bad option with the bat as well. We saw that he hit 2 sixes when they needed it as well. So
I just want to chip in case Shami is not basically recovering in this phase, then I wouldn't retain him, unfortunately. Then I'd go for one of the uncapped options, whether it's Shah Rukh or Sai. Again, that's something depending on that's completely captain and coach's choice. I can think both ways. Whether you say that you lock a Shah Rukh Khan and hope that he comes good, or you say Sai Kishore, even though there's a third spinner, there's so much to work with. And the fact that if Sai Kishore goes into the auction, I know for a fact Gujarat aren't getting him back because I know so many teams.
Exactly. So because if you see, you are sorting 2 openers out, you're sorting your spin trio and the middle overs guy as well. The guy can even open the bowling for you, Sai Kishore. I mean, we've been begging for that for years now. So I think it's just fitness because no other pacer, again, Mohit, Shami probably at the same end of the spectrum.
You can't look at Mohit as retention option. You can buy, I think you can buy him back for sure for what it's worth.
Yeah, so he's a good option as a backup. But I think the time has come for them to, again, they have youth enough, I agree. But Darshan and others as well, you'll have to start looking out for more options. You can't go back to Umesh again. So I think the pace option and the middle order guy is what I look forward to. Whether it is Shah Rukh, Abhinav or even Sai Kishore, that is the one spot where I feel I probably want to retain Sai.
Interesting. Jeet, what about you? Chip in here because 6 names, of course, 6 players potentially up for grabs or at least in terms of retention. Do you agree with all the 6 names that Anirudh had mentioned?
So one of the names that I don't agree with, first of all, is it's Noor Ahmed. Again, I'm not a huge fan of him. We have talked about his bowling action and how he bowls a lot more googlies to right-handers, which is basically turning away from right-handers. Now, if you are a wrist spinner and don't bring stumps into play, which Noor Ahmed doesn't, then again, you're not an attacking wrist spinner, which is a big problem that I've had with Noor Ahmed. He doesn't attack the stumps enough and he doesn't have so many variations. Second reason, the reason why Noor Ahmed played alongside Rashid Khan is the reason why someone like Sai Kishore sat out. Without Noor Ahmed, I'm sure Sai Kishore would have played more games. So I would not retain Noor Ahmed. Instead, I'll retain David Miller. As far as the domestics are concerned, I'll let go of Rahul Tewatia because I've got the David Miller option who can finish the games for you. Rahul Tewatia now, focusing upon him. Again, we talk about him as an all-rounder, but how many times has he bowled? How many games has he bowled in? His pure role has come down to finishing. Abhi, usme bhi we know the kind of strengths that he has got. He bowls a certain line, he's going to struggle. He's not going to be able to hit it, right? So instead of him, I'm going to retain Sai Kishore. Now that fixes my two options, Rashid Khan and Sai Kishore. And there is David Miller who takes care of my finishing job. Again, he's still got a few years in him. So again, a better option than someone like Rahul Tewatia, who still, again, his role has become very limited, sadly, because of Rashid Khan being in the side. So there are not many overs that he bowls. And even if he bowls, there is not a lot of variety that he has got in terms of the variations and how quick he's through the air or not, or whatever that is. So again, two changes for me. In the overseas, Rashid and David Miller. In the domestics, there will be Sai Kishore over Rahul Tewatia. Those will be my two changes.
Interesting that, and I probably am leaning a bit towards Jeet there on the Noor Ahmed bit. Personally, even I felt potential here, but I don't think he's retention worthy right now, and I don't think he'll be that much short after at the auction as well. कि भाई retain नहीं करोगे तो बहुत महंगा पड़ेगा. On the other hand, I would genuinely be tempted towards retaining Sai Kishore. He given like भाई मेरा तो सिंपल गेम थियरी का फंडा है 14 गेम उसको अगर खिलाओगे ही इज डेफिनेटली गोइंग टू गिव यू बेटर रिटर्न्स देन ओवर अ 14 गेम पीरियड डोंट लुक एट इट गेम इन गेम आउट तुम अगर 3-4 गेम में एक बार खिला के फिर ड्रॉप करके फिर वो करोगे डजंट मेक सेंस 14 गेम खिलाओ जो उसका रोल है जो उसके स्ट्रेंथ्स है पावर प्ले में खिलाओ डेथ में क्यों दोगे भाई डेथ में तुम ट्रिस्टन स्टब्स और ऋषभ पंत को के सामने बॉल डाले को बोल के 20 रन खा के तुम अगर उसको गाली दोगे तो फिर भाई गलती तुम्हारी है फिर. So you need to understand that. Again, Nikhil Bhai's favorite term, usage. Stick to that. Understand where to use him, how to use him. And if sort of given the right role and the right amount of, and the right kind of backing rather, I really think Sai Kishore is just waiting to explode at this level. Yeah. It's sad. It's sad. बुरा लगता है कि भाई साहब अब तक मतलब he's not been able to make a mark for himself for practically no fault of his. So it'll be very interesting, of course, ki what sort of names do they look at? Again, it sort of boils down to the kind of combination they're going for, right?
Something point of view, Sai Kishore will not be an uncapped retention. Just say.
चलेगा. It's fine. I'm pretty sure 4 cap retentions तो allow करेंगे भाई नहीं तो मुंबई तो भाई उनका पूरा टीम ही capped है नहीं उनके पास uncapped is. So that's this. And one more thing to add to that, of course, would be ki again, like I was saying, it all boils down to the kind of combination they look at. For example, this auction cycle, they backed Saha as their opener / keeper, and they had Wade as their backup. Probably in the next cycle, they can look at someone like a Prabh Simran. So, वो वाला भी problem ये था कि because Saha was not performing, now they were struggling कि how do they plug that void? If they don't want to go to an overseas option, which is why they weren't too keen on shoehorning Wade there, they can probably go to a Prabh Simran Singh. They can probably get a domestic keeper bat who can replace Saha, and then that opens up that overseas slot. They can then use it elsewhere. Or they can go for a Phil Salt or potentially a Josh Inglis, anyone they want. And then they can look at kahan pe kisko khila sakte. So it all boils down to that. Too many options. Like Anirudh mentioned, it's about understanding supply demand. Kahan pe supply zyada hai. If there is a sizable inventory of overseas keeper bats, then they might not look at it. They'll be like, हाँ सस्ते में मिल जाएगा जो भी चाहिए. अगर I hope खरीदा जा सकता है भाई, तो सबके लिए best to be for what is worth. Best could potentially also be let go of. So there are a lot of options there. Yeah. Like Arhan mentions, of course, Abhishek Purell, domestic options. There's Ishan Kishan. But maybe, again, Ishan Kishan is a big, maybe sure Arhan himself thinks he won't be retained. But there was one question here. Yeah, let's take this up before we wrap our review. Sports fan goes on to ask, they've had a lot of Indian finishers, Manohar, Shahrukh, Prevate. In fact, they even used Shankar as a finisher in a couple of games. Jeet, let's start with you on this. What do you make of the number of finishers they had? I'll also throw in Miller's name. Of course, he's not an Indian finisher, but they had like 4-5 finishers, yeah. Do you think they utilized them well?
They did. Very clearly, if I have to say it, they did. I couldn't believe that they had Shah Rukh Khan on their side and Abhinav Manohar, and neither of the two started. I know you've got David Miller, I know you've got Rahul Tewatia, followed by Rashid Khan. Abhinav Manohar can be your number 4 option as well. He's done well at that particular spot as well. Why would you keep backing Vijay Shankar when you're not even going to get a few overs out of him? In fact, there was a game where they even got in Vijay Shankar as the impact player in the last 5 or 6 overs. There was no point of that.
5 or 6, 17th or RCB, Gujarat.
So that's why I said last 5 or 6, because it was within that. So I couldn't believe they didn't utilize these guys. Abhinav Manohar, again, just got a game or two. Again, he was shafted out. It didn't make sense. Then they had Shah Rukh Khan batting at number 4, being thrown in too early. Now, that was again a premeditated plan to bat him at number 4. There was a very high risk attached to it. It worked out luckily in the first game. It didn't after that. But again, the point being, you've got so many talented, quality domestic finishers. Someone like Abhinav Manohar has already proven to be a very good player for them in the past. Why would you not start with them? It was completely baffling to me. So I just hope those kind of utilizations also get better. I mean, any day I would back someone like Abhinav Manohar or even Shah Rukh Khan to do the finishing job over someone like Vijay Shankar. So I don't see how these guys are utilized well. So something for them to look at.
Interesting. Anirudh, where do you stand when it comes to the plethora of finishers they had in their squad without necessarily giving all of them a shot?
I think the number of times you asked for Abhinav Manohar and RCB, I don't think they even gave him that many games this season. I think throughout this...
And I still stand by the way.
No, actually, I know he had that
I
very bad-looking dismissal against Kuldeep Sen when it came to the Rajasthan Royals game. But still, it's not fair, I feel, to judge him on just a couple of games here and there. Because even going by the 22 season, I think that's the season he played the most games for them. Where he didn't start the season, but then he came through and he played a good 7-8 games, if I'm not wrong, if not more as well. So again, I mean, they backed Vijay Shankar on the basis of the fact that he had a really good 23 season for them. I think he was almost like a breath of fresh air the way he played for them. But again, he kind of reverted back to mean in terms of not being consistent or being explosive enough in the middle overs. Vijay Shankar, that is. I mean, Shah Rukh Khan, again, you would expect, I mean, the classic supply-demand issue that if he goes into the auction and they don't retain him as an uncapped player, you would expect him to go for big, quite simply because you saw like the two guys who went big in terms of the uncapped. One was Samir Rizvi, who did not get too many opportunities at CSK. The other was Shah Rukh Khan, who again did not get too many opportunities at GT, but he batted at number 4, interestingly, come the back half of the season. The 2 RCB games and as well as there was another game, I can't recall it at this point of time, but then he batted at number 4, which was an interesting position because he never got the opportunity, but too many balls, and he did show some level of consistency there because he got a couple of decent scores. So whoever he does go to, I hope for his career that he gets a good run, whether it's at 4, 5, 6, wherever he does go, and he kind of performs. Because to be fair, Punjab did back him quite a lot, but you felt that something was not clicking at Punjab for him. So you'd hope that wherever he does end up next, he gets a fair crack. And I'm sure wherever Abhinav Manohar goes, because of the lack of Indian lower order batter, there's a very high chance that he does go in as a starter. So Gujarat is one of the rare scenarios where he did not get too many opportunities. So if he does have a good estimate, I can see someone like Abhinav Manohar getting a really good bid and being a very important cog for any team he does go into. But then again, overall, I think Gujarat, you're happy in terms of what's happened in the last 3 years. You say that it's gone definitely better than what you could have even ever expected. And going forward, you've still got a great core to work with. I can understand Jeet and Nikhil's arguments about the other tensions. Again, that kind of shows how the different options they have. You can play around it the way you want it to. Again, that should be coming down to the captain and coach, what they feel and what their perspective of what their ideal 11 is. So based on that, you can work your retentions out accordingly. And yeah, I think they should be one of the teams I'll be looking forward to. I think more than some of the other teams come the mega auction.
All right, we're just seconds away from the clock striking 9. And of course, the 3 lads have a team outing to be a part of. So we'll quickly finish this, but just take this one last question for Nikhil Bhai only. Nikhil Bhai, can Markram be a good option in the middle order for Gujarat Titans? Williamson type role to stabilize that middle order. He also has the gears. He's shown that. So do you think he could be a fit?
Yeah, won't be a bad choice, but again, it has to start with the aggressive opener first. Because again, if they are looking at an option like Sai, Gill, and Markram, then I'm not sure if it's going to work. Because Gill, Sai, and again, it is the same problem that they had with Kane also, that everybody is batting at the same rate. Now you cannot afford that. If you have a Phil Salt, or if you say you're opening with another very explosive top order guy, then you can have a Markram as your shield, that okay, if we lose that guy early, this is the guy who comes in. So I think it won't be a bad choice. As you said, English also will not be a bad option for them. That say they get in Prab Simran from Punjab, then it is still better to bat Prab Simran with Gill or Sai. I wouldn't even mind Gill going to three for that matter. Because then with Prab Simran and Sai, I get good left right combination. And I think Gill has done enough to tell you that he can adapt to different situations. So not taking Gill out of the top three there, but again, it's the options that you take with the keeper, because the keeper and the middle order guy is important. If you have Miller, then I don't think you can fit in Makram as well. Because for sure you'll have Rashid and one pacer or a spinner who's overseas. So that way they'll have to figure out if they can get an aggressive opener. If it's Indian, then okay, you can plug in Makram in the middle. And of course, Makram ke liye hamesha I have a lot of time. So will not mind it at all.
There you've heard it, and unfortunately my mic was placed a bit away. Yeah, I hope now it's better. But there you've heard it. Markram could be an interesting shout. Once again, a very exciting core to work with, just like the other teams. Again, given a choice, I would have probably just said कि भाई जल्दी May 26 ला दो, फिर सीधा December में चले जाओ, auction दिखा दो हमें फिलहाल बस. But it is time for us to wrap this review show. It's been great chatting about these three teams. And thank you all for tuning in, of course. And we will be back with the review show again on Thursday. Tomorrow, of course, we will be doing a watch along for Qualifier 1, which is happening in Ahmedabad. Kolkata Knight Riders taking on second position Sunrisers Hyderabad. It's going to be a fascinating game. Hopefully, 250 plays 250. You never know. But until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Hope you guys enjoyed this just as much as we did. Stay safe and importantly, make sure you're hydrated.